Hello, everyone. This is Carlos Wante back for an addendum to the Prometheus Covenant creature talk that I've been giving on all the creature work done for the movies. Um, so there was a couple things left out, and then just some bonus stuff that I thought I'd throw in here. Uh, Being that the talk went pretty well, I mean, there's been good response, and so. Just to blend it off in a nice way instead of chopping it at three. And in addition to that, I have some stuff that I didn't put in the last talk, which probably should have been in there. I thought I'd go over it here, and that is the Trog, um, which I could have sworn I went over, but I did so many recordings trying to get it right that in learning how to do all this, and that it didn't show up, and it was probably in an older recording. So anyway, I'm gonna go over it here in this one. So we're gonna go over the Trog, and which is the octopus type of creature uh, that came out of Shaw and later grew to the giant that attacked the engineer at the very end of Prometheus. Um, and then just gonna go over some conversations that I had with Ridley potentially, maybe one in particular, and uh, and then some work that I did just on the side, just having fun, talking about, drawing uh, stuff that it was inspired by my work on the movies. So with that, let's just go right to it. So this is this would be the thing. Well, this is based on a fossil that Ridley brought from Morocco, and it was a trilobite that he found, and he was actually he wanted to buy it, but he couldn't because it was. I don't know if it was too expensive or they just wouldn't allow him to. I don't remember exactly, but anyways, he brought these photos as reference for the thing that would come out of Shaw, and he loved it. It had all these spikes that came out of it, and so that's what this is inspired by, as a potential for the thing that would come out of Shaw. Uh, and So I started here, and I thought this was pretty cool, actually. This doesn't look like the thing that fossil, but it's inspired by. And I thought it looked. I think this came out pretty cool, and it looks weird, right? Um, and my idea for this thing, when it came out of Shaw, would that she's in this capsule, that she would, have it extracted from her, and she'd get out, and this thing would not be like what she did. I think she had it frozen, or she killed it with the gas, whatever that she, had that mist shooting at it inside the capsule, and it just looked like it died, there in the clamps. My idea was that after it came out, that it would be, it'd fall down into the base of the tank. It would just slide off. That there was no clamp grabbing it. You know, she would be sewn up, and she'd get out of there and close the tank. And this thing would then really wake up and get angry and start slapping its tentacles trying to get out, but it didn't understand the glass yet, and it would be there inside this, capsule trying to get out, and she'd leave, and this thing would still be alive, and it would get flushed down into the tube. There'd be like a drain, and maybe it didn't get drained. Maybe it did get drained. And this thing would have turned into the giant Trog later, but it would appear in a different place, not necessarily stay in uh, um, that one area where she was, went through her surgery in that area, in that I guess it's called the med bay area. Um, Maybe not. I think that was another place in the ship. But anyway, I thought that it would actually appear later somewhere else in another room, and it would be a surprise to everybody. Um, well, a surprise to her and the engineer that it would attack. So, uh, so the very first image I did of the Trog was this, and they kind of used this in the film, right? My idea was, though, I wanted it to be very anthropomorphic in its action. So, which I think is a really interesting way. I mean, I do personally think it's a very interesting way to um, get abstract uh, structures and make them and present them in a way that the average viewer could relate to it, and that would be in the way that we anthropomorphize its animation, the way that it moves. Um, Not entirely, but just those moments, right, where you see it, and then you see it like this. It looks like it has two arms and shoulders, and it's hanging, right? Um, but it's really this mound of tentacles, and it could have even been more, maybe more. I'm not sure. I actually agree with myself on that one. uh, but anyway, this is inspired by Mobius and some of the heavy metal stuff done, back in the late 70s, early 80s stuff that I, grew up seeing anyways through the 70s. And I thought it would have been a cool contrast. She opens the door, it's all dark. This white room opens up. It's not white out here, it's very dark. In the movie, everything was white, and then the door opened and it was white in there too. So there was no good backlight contrast, you know what I mean, to really push this character out as a silhouette, which to me is a strong impact. You know, uh, when you see that the contrast and you see the shape just hanging there, that just doesn't look right. So about the creature, um, I had ideas of it having all these teeth in a circle, and this little cuff, this thing here that would be actually not unlike the Architeuthis, has like this weird shape that is kind of fitted around the beak. And I wanted the creature texturally to be very simple, um, like a squid, right? I didn't want it to have all kinds of like hair and surface uh, detail all over it. I didn't. I wanted it to be very smooth and feel like a creature from under the sea. Um, I thought it would have been really interesting, much more interesting, because then all that filigree wouldn't take your mind off of this. I mean, I'm trying to guide the eye of the viewer to look at the mouth, right? You look at this and your eye is driven right here, especially if this thing is moving with the same type of hostility that the first alien in Alien had when Brett was looking up and he saw the teeth, you know, and it felt like it was quivering and shaking in rage, but it actually wasn't. It was the sound that gave it that quiver. If you really look at that, there's not a whole lot of movement. It's just very slow movement going on there, and it feels like there's quiver going on. And they got that wrong in all the subsequent Alien films, where they made the lips quiver, and it never did that. The lips just opened up, but you felt the quiver, you felt the hostility in the sound and the way that it was shot. And I wanted that here. I wanted that moment here, just like the Xenomorph, that first alien, when Brett sees it. I wanted it to feel like that. Uh, that this thing is just sitting there and you could feel the rage in these teeth and the way that it's clamping, maybe opening up the mouth here. I thought that would have been pretty damn cool, and a good kind of tip of the hat to the first movie in just in the feeling, right? Right. I'm moving my hands here like I'm talking to you. You can't see me. Okay. So first image here, I did this. This was used in the film pretty much. Go to, and so I did these, and also I only had one take on this because I had to move on to all the other stuff. Um, and this was my first take. I thought of it having teeth actually on the tips. Uh, so when it grabbed you, it's not unlike the um, big squid, not the Architeuthis as much as the big squid, which I think the Architeuthis has that as well, actually. So, but I was thinking of the big squid, the devils of the sea, they call them in Mexico, right there in the armpit of uh, of Baja and Mexico proper. Uh, that's where the big squid are, the Humboldt squid. And when the Humboldt, actually in each, not, I mean, just like the Architeuthis, in each one of their little suction cups, they're not suction cups, but they have um, teeth in them. So when they grab onto you, their tentacles, uh, when you pull those things off, you're tearing away whatever they're holding onto. Uh, they really are like devils of the sea, the Humboldt squid, and they're big. I mean, they grow up to 6 feet. So, they're going to take you down. You can't get away from those things if you have, I mean, one or two on you. Uh, you know. So anyway, so I wanted that kind of blind instinct that the Humboldt squid have, where they just do what they do, and I wanted the hostility of the of the first um, xenomorph with that. Yeah. So anyway, and the other idea is that I wanted it to feel, which I didn't get to here yet, as much as I wanted to. I wanted to get there even more, but I, like I said, I was taken off of this too fast, and I would have liked to have played with it looking more like uh, human shoulders just stacked on top of each other. I wanted it to be something more than a creature. I wanted it to be a perversion of man, you know, like the alien is, in my opinion. I look at the alien like it's just a perversion of man. And it's so, in that, it's like very demonic. Um, it's not just an alien creature, it's pure hostility, and that it looks, it's like from a man. I mean, in Giger's original image, that head, the back of the head is like a penis, right? So there's something more to it than it just being what you look at. What you see there is just this creature, but it's not that. There's something more about it that was that even in that design and how they designed it down to just be a creature, it still had the feeling of what his original image was, with the whole idea of it being a penis, and then the way they really shot all those scenes with Sigourney at the end, with the mouth coming out, and she's getting in the suit and all that stuff. There was a lot of suggestion there that it worked. You know what I mean? Uh, it was hostile. That whole thing was hostile, um, and it played up to the image and what the original intent was, uh, with the perversion of man, right? And so I thought that was it, because it gets into your it's psychological kind of horror in a way, right? And so I thought that was, it's a little bit higher minded. I just thought that I always felt Alien was a higher minded science fiction horror film. It wasn't dumb, and they're rare. Those kind of movies are rare, and they're even rarer to be able to get to work on those, right? So uh, this, I thought, could have been a little bit more human to get to that level of what Giger was intending for that Necronomicon image that he did. And I wanted to get there, but again, I didn't have time. I was just off of this thing after I did these images. Um, Here's that first image, this one, but now with the beak and all splayed out so you could see it. And here the shoulders are a little bit more implied. Um, Again, I wanted it very, very simple. No surface detail, not too much anyways. I wanted it very smooth, like a squid, not like an octopus, more like a squid, or even a cuttlefish. Um, I just wanted it very smooth. I thought that would have been um, much more interesting and a little more human too. I mean, you could have cracked skin, like a human skin would actually crack. That would be fine, you know. I mean, this thing grew really fast, so there would probably be stretch marks and stuff like that all over it, which would have been really interesting, in my opinion, because then it would have made you think that this thing is this thing really related to human? I mean, I think that needed to be in there more. It had to be something more than just a monster. That's all. Which Alien was never a monster movie per se. Monster movies are like the classics, uh, and then when they got silly, you got monsters, which I love. All the Godzilla movies and all that sort of stuff. You know, um, you know, but uh, so, and it's just a close up. I was toying with the idea that it would have false eyes in here that would be real eyes, but you would never really notice them. So this one actually starts to show more of my idea for that back, where it looks more like men stacked together here. Uh, so there you go. And that was the idea for the giant Trog. Um, I did want it to be very. I actually liked when they showed it in the film. I thought that was pretty good. Um, there were too many things coming out of and too many holes and areas to look at when it held him. I thought it would have been better for these tentacles, or like I said, like two to hold up itself up, and then for all of these to do the work, right? And to keep your focus. I mean, not unlike doing a fine art painting. You know, um, as a designer, I'm designing the character to lead the viewer to where I want them to focus. Right? I'm telling you where to look. Um, but the problem is working in film, right? Is that's I'm only part of the process. Everyone has to follow through, and trying to keep everyone on the same page all the way through to film, right, is not an easy task, to say the least. I mean, you have egos all the way through that are going to be talking into the director's ear well after I'm gone. Um, and they have far more authority than I do, and they have the ear of the director with the backing of importance and value given to them from the actual studio. Artists aren't really ever given that kind of respect. So, and I don't mean it in the way that we deserve respect too. I mean it in the way of influencing the project is what I'm getting at here. And so, a lot of these ideas that I come up with, I'll present it, but then you got a writer. The writer isn't necessarily aware of what you just said, and so he's not going to try to work it in. The director is going to tell him what he wants, right? But a lot of times, if the writer hears this, he can convince the director of things for the script, potentially. It depends on who you're working, who you're working with, right? But I would imagine that, and I don't know this for a fact, but I would imagine that they would have good uh, position to be able to influence the story. So um, I think that it would be good for writers to hear our ideas uh, for a lot of this stuff. And even if they don't necessarily work in the line of the story uh, that they're actually working on, which we won't even be apprised to, but it'd be kind of cool and I think more than cool, I think it would be valuable for them to listen to some of the ideas because maybe some of these things might work and they could find a way to work them in. Um, you know, uh, anyway, this is just me talking. I think all this stuff matters. Making stuff that's inspirational, I think it inspires people, even at the stupid level of just enjoying yourself and finding something inspiring, causes people to think a little bit more higher minded. People place a value on things a little bit more. They look at art a little bit more. They look at life a little bit more intensely. You start at the bottom, you know what I mean? And you work your way up. And for me, entertainment could be a little bit more than entertaining if you do it in a smart way. Of course, again, I'm just talking here, but this is the way I approach everything. I'm looking to just spark everybody through the production so that way this thing has some life in it. Uh, so there are the Trogs again. And so uh, now I'm going to go over this again because I didn't mention any of this when I talked about this in the last one. So in Creature Talk Part 2 or 3? 3. uh, so one of the things that this came from was Along Tomorrow. This whole thing with this is Holloway getting destroyed, right? And that's what this is drawn from. And you guys saw this in Creature Talk Part 3. Um, but one of the things that you didn't know is that how when I got started on this, Ridley actually came to me, and I'm just sitting there waiting for him to come down, and he comes in and he throws down in front of me Along Tomorrow, the Mobius and Dan O'Bannon stories, and it was awesome. You know what I mean? I hadn't seen that in ages, and so I'm looking at that. I mean, Ridley's the kind of guy that he just brings you stuff, and you just kind of look at it. And so we're looking through it, and he's talking to me, and I'm just looking at the comic as he's talking to me. And then I came to that one story, the very first story, Long Tomorrow, and and it in the sequence in the comic, the girl, the spy that the guy is after, uh, she throws herself, at the guy, and then they end up in bed. Of course, French comics, and she's on top of him, and as she's on top of him, she explodes into all these tentacles and into this crazy creature, and he freaks out, and he kills her, right? Um, and I looked at Ridley after looking at that, and I go, now that you've reminded me of this, we have to do this. And Ridley is the kind of guy that when you tell him that, he doesn't fight back. He just looks at you and goes, okay, yeah, let's do that. And I go, so I'm going to have to draw from this. And he goes, yes, okay, do that. And so that's where these drawings came from, is that when they would be, Shaw and Holloway would be in their love scene, that I inverted the characters, now the male's on top, right? And he would be the one to explode into this crazy creature. Uh, and this thing would come out of him, right? This is inspired by that story. Uh, and I still think that this would have been, hugely cool, and I really wish we could have gone there as a homage to Long Tomorrow, and I think that would have been, you know, very cool moment for Ridley also because he draws the entire time that we're talking. I mean, in addition to him trying to get me drunk because he'd give me wine while we were sitting there talking, um, and which was not a good idea. He'd offer me wine, and I'm not the guy that would say no to that. So he'd come and give me wine. He goes, "Hey, Crossley, you want some wine?" I'm like, "Yeah, okay, man, sure. I'm not going to say no to that. I'm sitting here drinking with Ridley Scott and talking about alien movies. Okay, let's do that." Because we did. The second time we met, actually, uh, for I'm on the second movie. On Covenant. Uh, uh, we met in a room. It was just he and I. He was not. I think he was traveling at the time, so he was just going to be in LA for a short stint of time. We met in this new conference room that they had upstairs at RSA, and he had all these huge stills from the first Alien film up all over the walls. And I couldn't stop staring at them. And I looked at him, I go, man, these are really cool. And he looked at me, he goes, right? Aren't these great? And he goes, I had to rescue these. They were going to throw them away at Fox. And so I said, no, don't do that. And he grabbed them and he had them all framed and he had them all over the walls. I mean, they were like, they were 18 by 24, uh, stills from the film. And they were beautiful, black and white, right? Um, you know, and we were talking about Alien. And I just looked at him and I go, I still can't believe that movie got made because there hasn't been anything that is even close to that film since then. I mean, all the art direction, everything that came together. I mean, it was literally like you guys just went straight down this one pipe and no one went to the side, and everyone had the same idea and made this movie. Um, I can't see it getting done today. And he was just, looking at me and smiling. Like, yeah. And then he started telling me a little bit about each photograph, which, is funny. I mean, we're talking and about everything. Uh, but they don't make movies like that all that often. And that was that movie actually. That's why it's still so inspirational. Even the new director's cut that he released, and I say new, back like maybe now, I don't know, 7 8 years ago. Uh, that where the room that Brett walks into before, which is like these stacks of canisters, before he goes into the landing gear room where he gets killed by the alien, right? Where they made it gold, the gold room, I call it. All the color saturation was pushed, and it just everything was gold in there. Um, it was beautiful. I mean, I didn't mind any of those little alterations that they made at all. You know, I thought the extra scene where Sigourney's running and Ripley, where she's running and she finds Dallas all cocooned there. I thought that I agreed with the original edit that it didn't need it. It slowed the movie down, and it just didn't make a whole lot of sense because when she shoots her the fire to burn everything, nothing burns. The fire just goes up in the air, and I don't see anything burning. So it didn't make sense to me. It didn't need it. It just stopped the action, slowed the movie down, and it stopped the buildup, the tension. So, but anyway, uh, so that's it. I mean, this is just a little addendum that I thought would be interesting to share related to the film. And here's some personal things that I did related to actually work I did for to the first Prometheus. This was actually a drawing that I replicated because somebody liked it and wanted a copy. And I did this for somebody. It's an idea that I had for Fifield um, creature, and it was a little sketch. I mean, I'm talking a little sketch in the corner kind of a thing. But I did it exactly as that little sketch. And then continue to draw ideas that I just felt like doing very uh, these Moby-esque kind of shapes in a way, inspired by the film again. And I kept on going. This is my little drawing of the beluga head in a different way, and this is just work I did for myself. A neomorph with a little bit more biomechanical kind of filigree on it. Um, and then mutants to do with Alien. More mutants. And these are things I did on my iPhone. Actually, this was on my iPhone painted with my finger, just screwing around. Inspired by, not from the movie, just inspired by. Inspired by, just felt like drawing a lot of weird shapes and mutants, you know what I mean, related to um, Alien. This one again on my iPad, I think. This one. I don't have a good stylus for the phone, so I just draw with my finger. And this one in Art Studio app. And this one was done, I believe, with the pencil, but mostly with my finger on in the same Art Studio app. Also on my phone, in the Art Studio app with my finger. And then I copied it over to my iPad and tried the pencil out to see if I can get a little bit more accurate and cleaner with it. The resolution is better, obviously, on your iPad Pro, so it worked. And this was inspired by the engineers, obviously, a little bit more mechanical, but you know, there you go. That's a marker drawing of, and I was actually thinking, and a lot of people have asked me, why do I do this? Because I'm thinking of precursors to the alien, that it's not fully formed, and these things are kind of alluding to the. I mean, they've called them insects, which I did not like, but I just went with it, and I didn't think about it too much, you know. And I thought, well, it's not fully formed yet. Maybe in the next generation it will be. Um, so there you go. This is an idea that I was playing with. I haven't explored very much for a neomorph queen. Uh, and it's a big drawing, actually. It's this graphite marker inks on a big piece of paper. Um, this one's actually up for sale. I think it's at Morpheus Gallery. They're selling it. But you can write me if you're interested. Um, and you guys can find me on Instagram or my website, galleryanatom.com. And there's a contact there if you want this one. A little sketch of an engineer type of character. This is in a sketchbook, just screwing around. Another iPhone drawing, engineer type of character. This is a very loose drawing in my iPhone. Uh, joining the head. This is actually based on something I did when I was 17 of an alien creature. And I wanted to sketch it out and maybe one day work it over, you know. This is a beluga tard. Uh, it's a man beluga alien creature thing. Uh, Again, just inspired by it and screwing around. That's all this is. Another finger drawing. Hands are way too big for this, but I just went there. Done with my finger on my iPhone in the Art Studio app. Another sketch in the Art Studio app with a different kind of brush. Also, a finger drawing in my Art Studio in my iPhone. This is actually more of a real approach done in Photoshop, just painted in Photoshop of a neomorph, based on that fish, which I can't remember the name, that has like this glass dome in the front. I can't believe I can't remember the name of this fish, but I'll smack myself later for not remembering. And it's based on that. That's all. I thought the neomorphs could have been really weird, and they're an opportunity to get really, really bizarre, which we didn't. And I thought they could have been a really cool place to get funky, with the design of the creature and the creature line that would lead to the xenomorph and show why it worked, why it worked, and why these other options didn't. So, and this is a very, very kind of biomechanical neomorph idea. It's a drawing in a book, and it's small-ish. That's why the grain is so big here, and the paper is a little toothy. So, but this just colored, this colored pencil and inks on the graphite. Graphite ultramorph drawing, just screwing around. Actually, a friend bought this. Friend that worked with me on Prometheus. Very nice, talented guy. This is based on the toy. Now, look, I had some of these toys when I was younger, and I bought them just as I was already a professional. And I just thought they were hilariously um, just over the top. And the gorilla xenomorph, I had to do a version of that, so I did. This is a character I invented to base an idea that I had that would be between the neomorphs, say, and the xenomorph. And in it's a long idea that I had. I wrote down some notes about this actually, and this is the bull box alien. Everything, and it's really mechanical, really more than biomechanical even, and that's because the being that it went into was naturally this way. And my idea was that regardless of how far out these neomorphs would initially come out of their first birth from whatever species that they would invade, right? And that they would use as hosts, that they would eventually become what we know as a xenomorph. And that would be within 3 generations, right? So, and the other idea that I had was uh, that you know how they're always salivating when they're open there, you see it dropping, they find it on the floor, that gel that these things are always dropping. One of the ideas that I had is when these things bite, and I think I mentioned this in the first Creature Talk 1, that when they bite, that fluid that would be released into the person that it bit or, disabled by, punching a hole with their, mechanical mouth shooting out, and punching a hole in their heads or wherever, they mostly head where they would just blow their heads out with that, projectile jaw, um, that they would also release saliva in there and that it would mix into the blood stream of that host. And that would have also an effect, and it would influence what that xenomorph that is in that embryo that is implanted in that body would look like. So it's not just a disabling of the host to cocoon them. I thought it would actually play a part in the whatever the xenomorph would actually look like. What would it come out? It would influence the actual final creature. So I came up with all that when I designed this creature. Um, and this was done like, well after everything. I just felt like screwing around. The bull box xenomorph, uh, or the red xenomorph, but I like to call it the bull box because it just feels like a bull and it's all boxy, Uh, anyway. And this is just me being, why not? I was screwing around. This I just did for myself. It's a neomorph jockey. Uh, and I'm not saying this in place of uh, the star jockey or the space jockey at all. I mean, the thing is a masterpiece, right? I'm not saying that at all. None of this is actually in replace of any of the stuff for the first film. This is more of just screwing around and saying what if and why not. And that's what I get paid to do. And so it's hard for me to turn that spigot off. It's constantly going. I can't get rid of uh, the ideas, so I just draw them down, and whether I'm on a film or not, And this one I had a lot to let out for, but wasn't really given the time to do that. The second film for Covenant, every round was a threat to stop me from working. They had people working on the film that wanted full control of the creature work, and I was being kicked off the film essentially. Uh, they took everything to Europe, and I was really being squeezed out of that film almost immediately. After my first meeting with Ridley, I designed all the neomorphs, and then they were ready to take me off the film, and I really wanted to continue on with that project, but uh, there you go. I was being kicked off fast. The pressure was hard, uh, and the production designer made me very well aware of that. Nice guy. I'm not saying that he was being mean to me. I'm just saying that there was pressure because all these other people wanted me off and wanted to take over the all the design work. Um, so the spigot was. They tried to turn it off, but it wasn't off for me. And I had so much to let out for this project. That's what all this work is from. And it's still going. I can't turn all that stuff off. I still have a lot to say for this property. And that's what this is. I'm just screwing around and thinking, hey, what if this happened? We need to do another movie in between Covenant and what would be uh, two more movies. We need to do two more in between Covenant and the first Alien film. We need to do an offshoot and explore more of the engineer world prior to David getting there, and talk about stuff, or talk about the engineers that were in space. A story about what was going on and why they were there on the moon. You know, um, and the moons. I mean, outside of LV 426, where all the wherever they were at, they were exploring and doing stuff. That's a really interesting story. You know, and to get us away from the entire David, um, you know, prison that everyone's in. I actually don't mind the idea of the David character doing it. There's a lot of religious overtones to it, which I think also, if I may, I think it's a missed opportunity to explore the idea of what I was talking about in Creature Talk Part 3 with the Nephilim. Thus, this character actually has six fingers also, right? Tying it to some historical kind of events and things that happened here in early history of civilizations, written in the Bible, um, which I think are pretty interesting, corroborated with some of the Greek mythology and the Sumerian stories. The Anunnaki or the Nephilim, whatever you want to call them. I call them Nephilim because I look at the biblical story, but I know about the Anunnaki and the Sumerian kind of stories, about the flood and all that, in the biblical story of the flood. All that stuff, to me, is what we were kind of talking about here, uh, with the wiping out of mankind by these engineers coming, and the fallen angels, which I consider the engineers to be, and they're creating beings in their own likeness, by sacrificing themselves on Earth. They are essentially the fallen angels creating, trying to create Nephilim, in their own likeness, and to pervert what is the life that would already be there, potentially on that planet. Them going to other planets that are uninhabited, um, and trying to be gods themselves. There's a lot of really, really interesting story of the gods of old. If you look at, if you study religious history, So this story was kind of going there with the idea of, Paradise Lost, um, so the Divine Comedy, um, and kind of toying with all that stuff, which I thought was pretty interesting. And I don't think we went there enough, um, and not to say to make it a religious film in any way, but I thought there's so many cool aspects to those stories that we didn't explore. Again, like the Nephilim, idea, and them all having six fingers, um, the and David really, really becoming a new version of what that is. He's trying to make life in his own image and wipe out mankind. He doesn't think it deserves to live. He's really become like the devil, uh, and all that would, I think, was underplayed a little bit. There's I think that there's a lot to play with there. That's all. Um, there it is, and that's just me rambling about all this stuff and my ideas for this project. Uh, and if you guys follow me on Instagram under my name, Carlos Guante, or follow my Gallery Anatom Instagram, you'll see a lot of these kind of drawings pop up every once in a while, just because I like drawing from this property a lot, uh, you know, because it has a lot of history already to it, and so I can draw from things, from one part to the other part and put things together and come up with really interesting things that people would recognize and can relate to in a bizarre way because it's just all faked. It's all fantasy, right? But you can still relate because you know the storyline. So Anyway, there it is. And there it is. And thanks for listening. This is Creature Talk Addendum. And let me know if you like it in the comments and the likes. I appreciate it. And I may continue, I'm not sure. The next one would potentially be Arrival. If I continue to do these, let me know. It won't be as long, of a talk because there wasn't a lot done. I went straight to it with Arrival. But we can, yeah, it'd be, I think, a fun one to go over. But let me know if you like it, and then we'll see. Thanks again. There it is.